Hi guys, you are now listening to On One Radio, the talk show podcast station bringing you the realest entertainment, information, music, lifestyle, and truth and comedy shows around. I am your host, Tony Williams. I am here to bring you some more breaking news. Um, we've been talking here recently about the investigation on and into Facebook, Apple, and a couple of other places. And here's the update. 50 U.S. states and territories announce broad antitrust investigation of Google. Now, they also state only California and Alabama have not signed onto the probe. So, for now, there's basically attorneys generals from 48 states launching the antitrust investigation into Google. It's getting kind of heated now. They're kind of on the hot seat. And it's a lot going on, and it's only going to get worse for these companies. Attorneys General for 50 U.S. states and territories on Monday officially announced an antitrust investigation of Google, embarking on a wide-ranging review of a tech giant that Democrats and Republicans said may threaten competition, consumers, and the continued growth of the web. Appearing on the steps of the Supreme Court, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton charged that Google dominates all aspects of advertising on the internet and searching on the internet, though he cautioned that despite his criticism, the states had launched an investigation for now and not a lawsuit. Paxton said the probe's initial focus is online advertising. Google is expected to rake in more than $48 billion in the U.S. digital ad revenue this year, far rivaling its peers, while capturing 75% of all spending on U.S. search ads, according to eMarketer. They dominate the buyer side, the seller side, the auction side, and the video side with YouTube, he said during a news conference alongside officials from 11 states and the District of Columbia. Some of those attorneys general appeared to raise additional complaints about Google, ranging from the way the company processes and ranks search results to the extent to which it may not fully protect users' personal information. Well, we were kind of leery and aware of that to a certain extent. Their earlier rebukes raised the stakes for Google, threatening top-to-bottom scrutiny of its sprawling business beyond just ads. Paxton promised the probe would go wherever the facts led. There's nothing wrong with being a dominant player when it's done fairly, said Sean Reyes, the Republican Attorney General of Utah. He said there is a presumption of innocence in such an investigation, but still said there is a pervasiveness to complaints about Google's business practices. Jeff Landry, a Republican from Louisiana, added, "We're here because there is an absolutely existential threat to our virtual marketplace." And of course, Google declined to comment, pointing to its previous statement saying it will work with state officials. The probe marks the latest regulatory headache for Google and for the rest of Silicon Valley, which have faced growing criticism and widening state and federal scrutiny into whether they've grown too big and powerful, undermining rivals and resulting in costlier or worse service for web users. The Post first reported the state's plan for a Google probe last week. For Google, though, the state's investigation comes more than 6 years after federal watchdogs wrapped up an antitrust investigation into its search and advertising practices and opted against bringing major penalties against the company, including breaking it up. Regulators around the world, meanwhile, have been more skeptical of Google. The European Union has issued the company $9 billion in competition-related fines over the past 3 years. The state investigation is led by Texas, Paxton, and 7 other attorney generals, 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans in total. Every state except for Alabama and California, the home of Silicon Valley so far, has signed on to the bipartisan effort, as have Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. A spokeswoman for California's Attorney General did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Already, state officials have sent official legal demands for documents to the tech giant related to the investigation of online ads, Paxton told reporters. Ashley Moody, the Republican Attorney General of Florida, said the state's Google probe starts with the company's vast data stores. Google monitors our online behavior and captures data on every one of us as we navigate the internet, she said. This investigation will initially focus on capture of that information and whether Google embedded itself on every level of the online market for ad sales to monopolize this industry. Now, this is something that a lot of people have been speculating about already, but it seems that we were not far-fetched on that idea. And it continues, I want the best advice from the best doctors, not the doctor, not the clinic who can spend the most on advertising, she said. The state's investigation arrives as the Department of Justice and FTC also are scrutinizing big tech, and DOJ has taken early interest in Google. The agency issued its first legal demand for records at the end of August, according to a securities filing Google made Friday. Another group of 11 state attorneys generals, led by New York's Lolita James, has begun their own probe against Facebook, exploring whether it violates competition laws and mishandles consumers' personal information. Some state leaders said they are working closely with their federal counterparts as these investigations unfold. But Carl Racine, the Democratic Attorney General for D.C., and a participant in both Facebook and Google probes, said he and his peers wouldn't hesitate to forge ahead if Washington once again opts against taking action against the tech giants. The state attorney general, they are an independent bunch, and they can be quite tenacious, he said. So I'm very confident that this bipartisan group is going to be led by the facts and not be swayed by any conclusion that may fall short, if you will, if it is inconsistent with our facts on the federal side. Now, if you guys are listening to this over on YouTube, definitely leave me a comment, like, and subscribe for Raw Uncut Truth. If you are listening on any of the podcast sites, like and follow to keep in the know. Because this is just the beginning, and I feel that it's going to go much further than we first anticipated. And I have a treat for you here. We're going to listen in as they talk about this, the attorney generals. Just 1 second here. It's getting started here.
Here because there is an absolutely existential threat in our virtual marketplace.
That's Louisiana Attorney General Jeffrey Landry, one of the 50 attorneys general representing U.S. states and territories who band together Monday to officially launch a probe into whether search giant Google is abusing power as a monopoly. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is taking the lead on the bipartisan investigation.
And this is a company that dominates all aspects of advertising on the internet and searching on the internet. This investigation is not a lawsuit. It is an investigation to determine the facts. And right now we're looking at advertising, but the facts will lead to where the facts lead.
Privacy advocates, consumer rights groups, and small businesses have long complained that Google's domination of internet searches has given it an unfair advantage that it uses to line its pockets. D.C. Attorney General Carl Racine seemed sympathetic to those accusations.
Attorney generals really care about where the rubber meets the road, and that is for the residents of their states and consumers. We also care about businesses, especially small businesses, that may be locked out as a result of what may be monopolistic power.
When word leaked of the probe on Friday, Google said it would work constructively with the AGs. Florida AG Ashley Moody says it's time to figure out if Google's domination of search undermines the very premise of a free and open internet.
Is something really free if we are increasingly giving over our privacy information? Is something really free if online ad prices go up based on one company's control?
But Google isn't the only big tech company in the crosshairs of state AGs. On Friday, New York spearheaded a focus on Facebook and its social media dominance. AGs on Monday said it was conceivable the two probes could actually be combined. And worries of anti-competitive behavior by tech firms doesn't stop there. The Justice Department and the Federal Trade Commission are also conducting antitrust probes of Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google.
Now, like I said, this is getting deep. And honestly, it's been time because, there are more companies out there than just these few companies. And it does seem as though they are trying to monopolize. It's almost like what they do in small little towns. How you have the sheriff is the firefighter. Not only is he the firefighter, but he runs the hotel. Not only that, he's also the paramedic. Not only that, he runs the diner. He runs the tow truck company. It's ridiculous. And there's a lot been said, and there's a lot that's been alleged. But these things, it's coming to the light. So no matter how they try to hide it, no matter how they try to say, oh, we're going to cooperate, but behind closed doors, are they really cooperating? And it does seem like a monopoly. And that is an unfair advantage. It is. Because if they control it all, then there's no room for anyone else to make any type of moves or to grow or... it just destroys other businesses. And this is not what it's about. And they need to understand that. But I'm pretty sure with all of this going on, they will. So like I said before, I'm going to keep you guys up to date on what's going on. But it is getting down to the nitty gritty. It's a lot of investigations going on. They're just waiting on California and Alabama to sign on and, get this thing rolling. And I'm in support of these probes and investigations because it does truly affect all of us. This is something that we use from day to day. And I'm pretty sure if there were other platforms that we could use, we would use them. especially if it was much safer to use. Our privacy means a lot. Our data is more than just numbers to be sold or for their friend companies to have access to sell us things. No. We have a right to privacy. We have a right to shop where we want to shop. But if they're controlling it all, that takes our consumer, that's damaging our consumer rights as well, which is not helpful nor healthy for us. So like I said, I'm going to keep you guys up to date on this. If you have any tips or you know of any information dealing with this, comment below or send me an email, TonyOnOneSpeaker@gmail.com, OnOneRadioTalk@gmail.com. If you're on Skype, hit me up on Skype. Let's talk about it. This has been On One Radio. I've been your host, Tony Williams. Thank you for tuning in. Give it a like and a subscribe for raw, uncut truth that is On One Radio. Have a great night.